Hi everyone, how's it going? It's me, Tony Stark. You can tell that it's me by my glasses and matching facial hair. Just kidding guys, it's actually me, Reed. Welcome back to another video where today I'm going to be ranking the MCU. I'm going to split this video into two parts. First will be my thoughts and overview, and then second will be a tier list ranking of the entire franchise. I'll put the timestamps down below if you want to skip a certain section or only just watch one or the other, but also if you just want to skip this video entirely, which I completely understand. We'll also link my letterboxd list, won't even have to watch the video. Let's just jump right. I just blow dried my hair to get it dry quick enough so I can record this video. So that's why it looks a little crazy, but you'll just have to excuse that. But anyways, let's just get into the reason why I assume you guys clicked on this video, the MCU, which if you don't know, the MCU stands for Mall Cop. No, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a series of about 23 films spanning over 12 years, which is pretty insane if you ask me. So the MCU has been a pretty big part of my teenage years. I watched Captain America: The First Avenger with my dad and my brother when I was around 11, and I just absolutely loved it. I was then inspired to record any action movie I could find on my TV, most of which ended up being the MCU, which led me to find Iron Man 3. And after my first viewing of that, Cap 1 was just immediately overthrown as my favorite movie. I used to watch that movie religiously. I swear, it's probably my most watched movie to date. I don't think I've seen any other movie as many times as I have Iron Man 3. Over the next couple years, I would watch more and more, just whatever ones came on TV, I'd give a look. But it wasn't until my dad took me to see Age of Ultron in 2015 that I actually saw one in theaters. My favorite movie had once again been replaced with Age of Ultron taking the crown. The crown was short-lived as it was replaced pretty much only a year later whenever I saw Civil War. This process would continue and continue. My dad and I would go see the new Marvel movie in theaters, and I'd leave the theater giddy and wanting more. This continued to happen all the way up until I saw Avengers Endgame. By this point, I was probably the biggest Marvel fan you could find. I'd rewatched the entire franchise in the week leading up to the premiere, and I could spit out useless facts all day. Pun intended. I was able to get a group of my friends together to go see Endgame on a Thursday midnight showing, and it was probably the greatest theater experience of my life. Anytime something crazy happened, we'd look at each other and lose our minds. Overall, it was just an amazing experience. But after that, it was almost as if I was burned out. I saw Far From Home the summer after, but besides that, I hadn't really watched any other Marvel movies. I was a streak that I had going up until the past couple weeks when I decided to rewatch the MCU during quarantine. Watching movies like The First Avenger and Iron Man 3 were kind of the kickstarters for my interest in film. I hadn't really been a huge fan of movies since those came along, but ever since then I've been broadening my horizons more and more, watching new different types of movies every single year. Alright, that's enough about that. Let's go into my ranking. Today I'm drinking a non-disclosed beverage. I don't want to give the company the satisfaction of having, their company name in such a big YouTube channel. I won't show you the logo at all, and I'll just, have their logo completely removed from my video. Alright, and welcome back to the tier ranking. As you can see here, I have this website pulled up with a tier list and all of the MCU movies. So we are presented with S, A, B, C, and D are the tiers, and we have all 23 movies right here, including Spider-Man Far From Home, which is the most recent one. Let's just begin. To start off, I'm going to start with the D tier and then work my way up. The first D tier that pops in my head is, of course, Captain Marvel. I wasn't a huge fan of Captain Marvel. I first saw it in the TLC theater in Los Angeles with my mom, but upon rewatch, I think the reason why I liked that movie so much first time around was because of that theater experience. Nothing else really pops into my head that's D tier, really. Everything else I feel like it's just mediocre. So I think first C tier I'm going to throw up there is Hulk. Next up is Thor: The Dark World. I'm just going to throw that one in front of the Hulk. I like it a little bit better, but it's still not that good. It's a forgettable villain. The final battle scene is really cool, in my opinion, with the portals and how they're flying around and stuff. For me, the next one up is the first Thor, which I like a little bit better than Thor: The Dark World, but I still think it isn't that good. For some reason, it felt a little goofy in times that it didn't really need to be goofy, and every 5 seconds was a Dutch angle, and I have no idea why. This might be a little controversial, but the next one for me is going to be Captain America, the First Avenger. You know what? I'm going to make that a B tier. It's a 3-star for me, and I really don't think it's that good all around. Like I talked about earlier, I used to love this movie, but that hype just doesn't really hold up to me now. The next one for B tier is going to be Black Panther. That one also might be a little controversial. Just for me, I just wasn't a huge fan. I love the villains. I thought Claw and Killmonger were both great villains. I also really like Shuri. I think the Vibranium was used more of a way to make the plot easier to write. Another movie that I have the exact same problem with, which actually comes up next, is the Ant-Man in the Wasp. This movie is a ton of fun. I think it's really enjoyable and just fun to watch altogether, but the Pym particles I think fall into that same category as Vibranium, where the movie doesn't really know what it is, it only uses it to progress the plot forward and makes the movie easier to write. Another hot take for you guys might be my next pick, which is Iron Man 3 coming in on B tier. In my opinion, it just really isn't the best movie all around. I love Shane Black's writing. I think this is the best version of Iron Man that we've ever gotten, and I really like the Mandarin twist. House Party Protocol is also a awesome scene that we got from this movie, but I think all around it just isn't as good as I wish it was. The most recent release is the next pick for me, which is Spider-Man Far From Home. That's coming in again at a B tier. I love Jake Gyllenhaal. He's my favorite actor, so I really enjoyed seeing him in this role. But I think overall the movie felt a little confused and had too many plot holes for my taste. One scene in particular sticks out to me is whenever he's on the bus and he almost kills Flash. I thought that was a little messy and just didn't really sit right with me. Coming up next are two of my favorite MCU sequels. I want to throw in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 right here in front of Spider-Man, and then in front of that I'm going to throw Iron Man 2. My placing for Iron Man 2 is probably very controversial for a lot of you, but I mean, a lot of the reason why I like this movie is Justin Hammer, and I feel like you can't really argue with that reasoning. As for Guardians 2, I think it tried a little too hard to live up to the charm of the first one, which is absolutely amazing. However, I do have to give props to James Gunn, though, for writing possibly my favorite death scene in any movie, besides maybe Merlin from Kingsman 2. Moving up with my next A-tier ranking, I'm going to drop Thor Ragnarok in there. This movie is a ton of fun. It brought a whole new, fresh take on the Thor character. I love Taika Waititi. He's a great director, one of my favorites. It's got good writing, strong character arcs, and I think overall it's just a fun movie to watch. Another controversial pick for me, which if you guys have been paying attention are probably wondering why it hasn't showed up on the list yet, but that of course is Avengers Age of Ultron, which I have listed as an A tier. Listen, a lot of people hate on this movie, but I personally really enjoy it. I think there's a lot of great scenes that this movie has to offer. I really like Ultron as a villain, and it sets up a lot for the MCU. Next up is Avengers 2.5, Captain America, Civil War. I wasn't expecting Civil War to rank that high on my rewatch. I mainly just remembered it as a fun movie, not necessarily a good movie, but I thought the writing wasn't half bad, and you were really able to empathize with both sides, which I think was what the movie intended to do, and it did a great job at that. Zemo is kind of a forgettable villain, but I think he was very well written, and I'm definitely excited to see him in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. My next choice is Spider-Man Homecoming, coming up in the A tier as well, and this is possibly one of my favorite MCU villains besides maybe Thanos. Michael Keaton did a great job as Vulture. I think Iron Man making an appearance in there was good as well. It was a good balance. He wasn't in there too much. Didn't really feel like an Iron Man movie. Tom Holland was great as Spider-Man, and I think overall the movie is just a really good watch. If I'd made this ranking before my quarantine rewatch, Ant-Man would be a lot lower, but for me, it's an A tier. This movie is a ton of fun. One of my favorite directors, Edgar Wright, used to be attached to this project, and you can really see some of his influence seep through into the final cut, which in my opinion makes for an awesome movie. I teased out it earlier, but next up will be Guardians of the Galaxy. It's colorful, and it just brings a whole new vibe to the MCU. Ronan is another forgettable villain, but this movie has so much to offer, you kind of forget about him anyways. This one might be a little surprising, but next up will be Avengers Endgame. Like I said earlier, this movie was so awesome in theaters, I walked out of it thinking it was a 5-star movie. It sits at about 4 stars for me upon rewatch. I think there's a lot of awesome things that happen. Most of it's fan service, but when you take that all away, it's really just a mediocre movie. It was a lot of fun to see them go back in time, interact with their previous selves, and see what the stories are going on from different angles. One of my favorite plot lines from the MCU. We're getting down to it now. Next up is probably in everyone's top 5. That, of course, is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I think this goes to show that you can make an awesome superhero movie without any of the superpowers. I really like spy movies and some of those far-fetched action movies, like the Mission Impossible series, for example, which I love. And this movie reminded me a ton of those types of movies. It's got some great writing, but I think if I were to make one nitpick, it'd be that Nick Fury stays dead, which might be a little harsh, but I think with the addition of the Skrulls in Captain Marvel, it would have been better to have them replace him after his death. My final movie to go into A tier is going to be Doctor Strange. I love this movie. The visuals are awesome. I don't know how it didn't win Best Visual Effects. A lot of people don't like this movie because they think it's basically just Magic Iron Man in terms of the origin story, but I think it brings enough uniqueness to the table to make it its own separate thing. Moving up into my S tier movies is going to be the first Iron Man. In my opinion, this is the most rewatchable movie in the MCU. It stands alone by itself. They don't really have to watch anything else to really understand what's going on in it. It's got a good balance of action and good storytelling to just really make it an awesome viewing experience. Alright, we've got two left, and at the second place spot is going to be the first Avengers movie. Before my quarantine rewatch, this movie sat at about 3 stars. I've got it at 4.5 now. You're able to experience the best of all of the characters into just one epic movie. And as if it couldn't get any better after that one, my number 1 placing for my MCU ranking is, of course, Avengers Infinity War. This movie rocks. I think the focus on Thanos is really what makes this movie so awesome for me. You get to see his journey through collecting all the stones and how he interacts with the different characters rather than the Avengers interacting with him. The score is amazing, and those last 30 seconds are just mwah, chef's kiss. It's just mwah. Alright guys, thanks for watching. That's pretty much all I have going on for this video today. If you liked what you saw, be sure to let me know. I was thinking about maybe doing another tier list like this for another movie franchise or series, like I was thinking Pixar, for example. So if you'd like to see that, be sure to let me know in the comments. I'm a huge movie fan, and I was thinking about maybe doing some reviews and stuff on this channel, so if you'd like to see that as well, also let me know. Maybe I'll do a poll or something, we'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching. As always, thank you for all your support on all my videos recently. I've had a ton of fun making them, and there's definitely more to come. So if you like what you saw, be sure to subscribe and so that you don't miss any.